Thanks for joining us at Right On Replicas, where we're proud to bring you the best scale model kit reviews on the planet. This review is brought to you in part by Rogers Hobby Center in Saginaw, Michigan, where the fun begins. This review covers Tyrone Malone's Kenworth Hideout truck. It's a 125 scale AMT kit number 1158. Now, the Hideout truck debuted in '79 under AMT's 5008 number, but it's also been released in the '80s and again in 2019. Now, there's also a similar truck called the Papa truck, which is the patriotic version, and that was released a couple of times as well. Now, for the modeler, this truck has about 200 pieces, and it's a skill level 3. Now, the pieces are molded in black, clear red chrome with black vinyl tires and water slide decals. When you're done, it's about 16 3/4 inches long, 4 3/4 inches wide, and 6 inches high. Well, that's Newt on the line. He's our program director. Hi, Newt. Are you getting cabin fever under these stay-at-home orders?
Well, just a little, but I keep pretty busy keeping you and the reviews on track.
So then, are we ready to go?
Yeah, but I was just wondering, why did they call this big rig the Hideout truck?
I'm not positive, but I'm kind of guessing that it stemmed from the name of his racers under the Bandag's Bandit title. Now, I think maybe it was just a catchy title for the rig that they used to go back to their home base after a show.
Well, it's the nicest looking truck I've ever seen.
Yeah, it was beautiful. And it seems a lot of the independent truckers add some really great graphics and customizing options to their rides these days. And I'm sure that Tyrone Malone had something to do with that trend. Here are the contents of the kit. As you can see, there's quite a few parts. We'll be using Model Master liquid cement and sometimes super glue, and occasionally some of the white or crystal clear glue for glass parts. Now, remember to use the manufacturer's safety and use guidelines when you use or see any of the products in this review. Here are the kit's decals, and as you can see, they're very colorful. And you may want to use some decal setting solution when you apply some of the longer stripes, however, to make sure that it fits over the contours. Construction starts with the engine, so put the block halves together and then add the cylinder heads and then attach the two halves of the transmission to the back end. Now, paint the assembly first with a light color, then a gloss white for the engine block, and aluminum for the transmission. And now we can go ahead and add those valve covers, and there's a couple of pieces on there, breather cap and another item, so put those in place, but remember, you have to scrape plating and paint for that matter off before pieces that you glue together will adhere to each other. I'll add these two pieces to the engine. They're painted gloss black, and when they dry, we'll be attaching part number 70 to the right half and then 73 to the left half of the engine. Now, these engine pieces, parts 52 and 80, are painted gloss white. Now, 52 is the front engine assembly there, and 80 is attached to part number 52 as well. Now, look for these pieces, 69 and 92, and they get painted gloss white, and they're attached to the front of the engine assembly as well. Find these parts in the kit and paint the fan semi-gloss black and pick out the bolt heads with some silver. Now, the fan belt's painted flat black, the belt, and then the pulleys are painted gloss white. Now, number 78 piece there is painted white, and the fan and that part are attached to the fan belt. These pieces now are attached to the base there, part number 58 or 68, and then that's all painted gloss white. Now we can attach that sub-assembly when it's dry, along with the fan and pulley system to the engine. Locate the exhaust manifolds and the crossover pieces here, and we're going to attach those to the correspondent cylinder heads. 90 is going on the right side, the other on the left. Now, part 72 gets attached to both of those, and then number 60 piece gets attached to part 72, and then also to part 57. Grab these parts out of the kit and assemble them into the sub-assembly you see there. And then that is painted gloss white as well. And when that's dry, you can attach the number 262 assembly unit to the back of the engine there. And now we can move on to some of the tire and wheel assemblies. And both parts 85 are painted silver, and they're detailed with some gloss black. And then part 521 gets installed into a tire, and part number 85 is installed into the other side and glued to part 521. Now you repeat these steps for the second front tire as well. For the rest of these wheels, all four of the parts 85 are silver, and then again detailed with some gloss black. And then parts 86, they get painted silver, and they're attached to 85. Then part number 522 to the other end of part 86. Now 2 tires are slid onto the rim assembly, and then you repeat this process for the other 3 rear tire assemblies. We'll take out the pieces for the frame and the ladder frame with the cross members, etc., and braces, and we'll assemble those in the fashion that you see here. You can get a close-up here of the frame rails, and then that gets painted a gloss black and set aside to dry. Now you'll look for these parts from the kit, and then part number 95 gets painted gloss black, and when dry, attached to the frame rails behind the front leaf springs. And then the front bumper it then is attached to the frame assembly. Remember to scrape off that glue and chrome plating first. I'll get out the front axle assembly pieces there, and we're going to attach tie rod number 33 to the axle, and then that gets painted gloss black. Now grab the front shocks, and they get painted gloss black and attached to the frame, and then the front axle assembly can be attached to the frame assembly. Now get these pieces, the canister and bracket. Part 21 then is attached to 26, and then part 25 is painted gloss black before it's attached to the assembly. Now go ahead and assemble parts 29 and 30 of the canister halves to each other, and that gets painted gloss black. Now you see both the canister assemblies here. Part 25 gets attached to the left side of the frame rails, and the 29 and 30 assembly to the right frame. Now part number 42 gets painted gloss black and attached to the left frame rail. 2 small parts, 31 and 2, are painted gloss black, and when dry, 31 is attached to part 42, and then 32 is attached to the front axle assembly and to part 31. I grab these 4 pieces, and there's a variety of colors here, so part number 20 gets painted gloss black, and 28 is flat black. Then 27 is also gloss black and gloss white. Now 27 on the left side and part 20 on the right side are attached to parts 28, and then part 18 gets attached to that assembly as well. So the piece that you see here, part 19, it's gloss black, and it gets attached to the previous assembly 21, 26, and then part number 28, that assembly is attached to the right frame rail. Now we're going to put the halves of these 2 cylinders together, and then we're going to give them a coat of primer, and then paint those a nice gloss black spray after you deal with the seams a little bit there. And there's 2 of them, so get those ready. So we're going to assemble these piece halves. There's 4 halves there, and they get assembled into 2 different tubes, and they're again painted primed, and then painted gloss black and set to dry. Get these pieces out, and the curved parts, part 22, then also part 130 and 128 are painted gloss black. Now 2 of the part 22s are attached to the right frame rail, and the other 2 are attached to the left. Now part 130 is attached between the left front number 22 and the right front number 22. Then part number 128 is attached to the left rear of parts 22. Now we can attach the part 17 subassembly there to the interior side of both parts number 22 on the left frame rail, and the other 17 assembly is installed on the interior side of both part 22s on the right frame rail. And now we're going to attach part 121 to part 23, and then that assembly is painted gloss black and detailed with some flat black for the boot portion there. And then those are I put them in a Ziploc bag marked as step 30 until they're needed later on. Similarly, part 116 is attached to 130 and then painted gloss black. and detailed again with the flat black. And it gets put in a little bag and marked as step 30 until later as well. And you'll see the trend here, and parts 118 and 117 are assembled and detailed the same way and marked as step 32. The last set here involves parts 119 and 122, and they are detailed and set up for step 33. Now we're going to get those dried sub-assemblies out and place them along the frame rails as the instruction sets show. And as a reminder, the instructions are at the back of the review here at the end, so if you need some reference, there it is. And now we can attach the 112, 113 assemblies there to parts 22 off the frame rails. Now we can grab these parts, and part 108 is attached to 109, and then 106 to 107, and then that subassembly is attached to part 108. Now the whole thing can be painted gloss black. Now similar parts 110 and 111 are assembled and painted gloss black too. Part 101 and the coupling there will be painted gloss black, and the previous assembly 108 and 9 get attached to 121, 23 assembly, and then 116 and 120 assembly. Also part 101 is then attached to 109, and the 111, 110 assembly gets attached to part 101. And 118, 117 assemblies, and then the 122 and 119 assemblies as well. Now we're going to add some of the attaching pieces here, and as you see, these pieces are assembled to two halves of the larger unit there put together. And then both 127s are attached to the right frame rail, and 115, and then part 114 to the left frame rail. 108-9 assembly now, and 110 and 11 assemblies. And then both 129s are attached to the left frame rail and part 114. Finally, part 31 gets attached to 115 and 114. We can paint the drive shaft gloss black, and the engine assembly now gets installed into the frame. Look for the mounts there and scrape the paint and glue that into position. And along with make sure that that you use part 150, because the other drive shaft isn't long enough. You're going to need this for the to go to the engine and the rear differential, so make sure you get the right one in place. So locate these bracket pieces, parts 24, 97, and 98. They're painted gloss black. Now 24 is attached to the top of both frame rails, and 98 is attached to the right rail, and 97 to the left. We'll locate these pieces, and after part 63 and 65 are assembled, they can be painted gloss black and detailed with a little light gray. Part 64 is painted gloss white, and then 77 and 79 get painted steel color. Now part 64 is attached to the 63-65 assembly. And the fan assembly, 63 and 35, then can be installed into the frame. The part 77 on the right side and part 79 on the left side there are attached between the radiator and the engine assembly. So use some glue sparingly, and you can attach the front tire assemblies to the front axles. Same for the rear tires. Make sure that they set properly and they're just in the same line and plane as the frame. Have to backtrack just a little bit here in step 39. These two parts were skipped over, so parts 124 and 6 are painted gloss black, and it can be still attached to part 115, and part 126 is attached to part 114. Okay, we're back to some chrome pieces here, and part 82 gets painted gloss black, and then parts 511 are attached to part 512 and then to part 82, and it's attached to the 511 and 512 assembly. Gather up these pieces, and parts 7, 8, and 88 are painted gloss black. Now part 517 gets attached to 518, and part 7 gets attached to part 8 now, and part 513, and it gets attached to part 514. The 5, 17, and 18 assembly then can be attached to the 7 and 8 assembly, and part 88 is attached to 7 and 8 assembly as well. Now the 5, 13, and 14 assembly gets attached to part 88. The 511 and 12 assembly can be attached to part 98 on the right side of the frame, and the 5, 13, and 14 assembly is attached to part 97 on the left side of the frame. Make sure that they are perpendicular and look appropriately, pointing all in the same locations and directions for a little bit of symmetry. Okay, look for some exhaust pieces here, and part 51 gets attached to 58, then it gets attached to part 87. Now 81 is attached to 83, and all three assemblies get painted steel, and the 51-58 assembly can be attached to the right side of part 57 on the engine. And then the 511 and 12 assembly and the 5, 13, 14 assembly, and then next the 81 and 83 assembly gets attached to the top of the 21-26 assembly, and 7 and 8. Now 84 and 87 is assembled and attached to the left side of part 57 and 21-26 assembly. And as you can see here, this convoluted group of tubes will go together, but it'll take a little patience to put them into place. Next, we'll paint parts 35 and 6 gloss black. Now 35 is attached to the top section of part 88, and then it's attached to the right side by part 98. And then part 36 gets attached across the tops of both parts 88 and 82. Can begin some work on the interior, and the front and the back seat halves, and the pedestal can be attached to the base there. And the seat assembly then is attached to the seat pedestal, and then the entire thing is painted semi-gloss black. And you repeat this for the other seat assembly. So next we can begin putting the interior tub together, and you'll see through close-ups the way that I painted mine, but that's pretty much up to you. However, this was a 1-to-1, so as you see here, there's some leather colors, gloss blacks. The bed was painted with light blue tones. Now the instructions suggest that you sand the walls, but to me they look like patterned walls, so I did not sand them. On the bottom is a copyright logo. It's printed and it can be covered up with paint, so it's pretty easy to disguise. I painted this left front wall, part 15, with some semi-gloss black to match some of the rest there, and it gets installed into the interior, and then both seat assemblies are put into place in the buckets. Grab the dash and the wheel and the column there. We're going to paint the dashboard semi-gloss black with a little bit of wood for the dash face and some chrome for the gauge trim, and then assemble those units together. And the steering column then can be attached to the interior tub and to the dashboard, and the wheel is then attached to the column. After you've sanded down the parting lines and made sure there are no blemishes on the cab body, I painted that gloss black, detailed with a little silver, and both windshield and the upper level windows are installed into the cab with some clear part cement. You can use white glue as well. I can look for some, glue points, and we'll install the interior assembly into the cab. And the right cab insert 45 and the left 48 are sprayed with some gloss black. And they're detailed on the inside with some aluminum before they're attached to the cab. Now the left cab hinge 43 and the right are painted gloss black before they're attached to the bottom of the interior tub. We'll use these pieces, and the sun visor gets sprayed gloss black and attached to the cab, and both the headlights and the grille are attached to the cab assembly as well. Now we'll add some of the exterior chrome parts, and the right mirror 501 and the grab handle 510 are attached to the right side of the cab, and the left mirror 502 and grab handle 510 are attached to the left side. Now the right ladder 506 and the left 515 and both front grab handles, those are parts 507, get attached to the cab in their respective positions. Now you see the two air horns and the cab lights. The air horns are put into the outward holes there of the three center lights, and then the roof lights get detailed with some turn signal amber and put into place on top of the cab. Parts 39 and 41 get painted gloss black, and then they're attached to the part number 41 is attached to part 39 before then 41 can be attached to the cab there. Next we'll add part 14 and attach that to part 13. And then the assembly gets painted semi-gloss black and detailed with steel. And part 9 is painted flat black before it's attached to the left frame rail. And the 14-13 assembly are now attached to part number 9. Now we can place the cab assembly onto the chassis, and it fits on the hinge and brackets there, so no glue is necessary so that it can be operational. Now we'll work on some of the bed parts here, and the parts 143 and 144 attached to 146, and then 147 is attached to 143, 6, and 4. Now there's a slight warpage in 147, so I used some masking tape to hold that into position until the glue was dry. You may find the same situation. And then 146 assembly can be painted gloss black. Now we're going to assemble the ramp sides in the flatbed here, and they get painted gloss black. And part 140 is painted aluminum and detailed with a little gloss black and steel. So I'll put those together as you know they would go together, and then parts 141 and 2 are detailed with some silver and some turn signal amber and Model Master's stop light red. Now part 145 gets painted silver and stoplight red too. And so now we can mate the upright there with the bed and frame rails, and we're going to attach then the 146 assembly to the 140 assembly. Look for your glue points and make sure that you've got a good symmetry there. And then the assembly is attached to the chassis. And then finally decals were applied to the number 140 assembly before it gets added to the chassis in its entirety. I'll add the 2 tire guides here. They get painted aluminum and then just placed on top of the bed. Well, there you have it. You're done. And overall, the kit was pretty easy to put together. There was a little flash and some slightly warped pieces, but they were easily dealt with. You may need to use plenty of water and go slow with the decals. They're thin, and you just need to take your time when you're placing those. There was really no super annoying problems with assembly. Everything went together pretty well as it was engineered. And it's a great classic kit that's going together, and it brings back some of those crazy Tyrone Malone memories for us, and I'm glad that it was resurrected from the vaults to put together, and if I were you, I'd buy one and put it on my shelf. Well, we hope you liked this premium step-by-step model kit review, and so that you don't miss any more, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can do that by clicking on the icon in the lower right of any of our reviews. Or you can find us on Facebook or at our website, rightonreplicas.com. Thanks.